Good morning, my friends. Welcome to Treasury Elite Leadership Series. I would like to thank all our viewers and members for supporting this noble cause of Treasury Elite, whose main objective is knowledge sharing, mentoring, and networking. Time and again, we bring world class speakers and thought leaders across the world in the field of Treasury and global financial markets and conduct various programs in form of webinars, conferences, different formats. Treasury Elite Leadership Series is one such format where we learn from industry experts about their experiences of running their finance functions and treasuries, opportunities and challenges they encountered, and broad trends they see for the future. I would like to welcome Mr. Samba Sivan Ganeshan, one of the widely respected names among the Treasury and the CFO community in India. He's currently the CFO at Tata Sky. Mr. Ganeshan is a chartered accountant, cost accountant, and company secretary. He's also a postgraduate from the prestigious IIM Ahmedabad. He has over 30 years of experience and spent his initial years with firms like P&G and Reynolds, later became the chief operating officer at BPL Cellular. He spent an interesting stint with Vodafone Group in UK and as a regional financial controller for the Northern Europe. His major specialty is leading transformation projects, and he strongly believes that people are his greatest assets in the company. He's an avid reader and pursues his interest in playing chess, learning piano, and running marathons. He strongly recommends reading books, and one of his favorites is Deep Learning by Gary Kasparov. Welcome, Mr. Samba Sivan. Should I call you Mr. Ganeshan or Mr. Samba Sivan?
Samba is better.
Samba is great. Great, sir. So, you have had various experiences across a range of companies in the past. I would love to hear about your experience in all our viewers, which are ranging from treasurers, CFOs, CEOs across India and outside. Would love to learn from your experiences, sir. So, I would like to ask my first question is that over the last 28, 30 years of being involved in treasury and finance function, what has been your top three learnings that you would like to communicate to our viewers?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for a very long introduction. Okay. So I started my career in Procter & Gamble. This is way back in 92 after finishing my MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. So I'm an 87 chartered accountant. So I started actually in internal audit, and after 1 year of internal audit, I moved to treasury ops. So in those days, P&G was a cash-rich company. Even today, it's a cash-rich company. So my main focus in those days as treasury operating manager was to make sure that the surplus funds are invested profitably. So we have to invest it before 10 o'clock in the morning so that we don't lose that particular day's interest. It is a completely seller's market. So we had the checks of all the distributors, all the dealers. So even before the material left from the plant, for example, we had an aerial plant in Mandideep those days. And before even the material moved out to the distributor's place, we had encashed the check because we had the check signed by the dealers with us. So it was a different situation. So come BPL Mobile, in fact, I had managed the funding of BPL Mobile after say 15, 20 years. This was way back in 2004, 2005. It was a completely opposite situation where I was managing funding. I was responsible for corporate finance, where you are responsible for making sure that the borrowings are done for the business improvement. So every year we had to go to the bankers and get a consortium of loan approved and get 7 bankers approved, short-term debt, long-term debt. So that was a completely different experience. Managing treasury in a cash crunch situation is different than managing treasury in a cash-rich situation. So now I think we are all in a cash crunch situation. So that experience in BPL Mobile actually helps me in particular to put in some of those learnings as to how you manage in a tight liquidity scenario, where you had trouble even in say paying the salaries, where you had trouble in even taking out materials from the customs warehouse. So where you had to plan each and every cash outflow at a microscopic level. So this is the situation I think many of the companies are in today, where the cash flow liquidity management has become the be all and end all. So in fact, it is true for us as well in Tata Sky. So earlier we used to do, we used to manage cash flows on a weekly basis. I used to see the weekly cash flow report, and as long as it is within the plan, so we never used to get into the deep dive of it. Now, every day I spend the time going through the cash flow, looking at why this number has gone up, why this has come down, why is this extra payment happening, what is this unplanned payment happening. So all those things we have to get into at a microscopic level. So there is a lot more time which is being spent. So the big learning for me is that in a cash crunch situation, the way you manage the business is a totally different way than in a cash rich situation. So I've seen both sides of it, and Vodafone again was a cash rich company, so you didn't have any problem with cash. Not the current Vodafone. I'm talking about the Vodafone of 2010 and 2012, and the telecom industry was booming. Right. So that is the key learning for me. One is that you need to be on the toes all the time. Even when you are having a surplus, you need to be very tight on cash flow management. And the second big learning is that there is always potential to improve on costs. The second big element, because if you do lot of what you can say automation, you will actually find out where all there are opportunities and where all you can do benchmarking. In fact, in Tata Sky, we had appointed Ernst & Young about a year ago to come and study our cost situation and the treasury cost in particular and do a benchmarking. So they came and gave us some reports saying that, okay, broadly we were in line, but there were a couple of improvement areas. But it is important to benchmark yourself against the other companies and against the industry. How much is your cost? What is your LC cost? What is your Forex cost? What is your hedging rate? Are you in line? So we also do have advisors. So it is always good to have advisors, and benchmarking is another learning. Don't just look at internally, but also look outside and see what best can be improved from the cost perspective on treasury management. So these are the two things: how you tightly manage the funds and how you manage the cost by looking outside as well, apart from looking inside.
That's a very interesting perspective, sir. That's experience talking. I can completely relate with what you are saying. I mean, there's so many companies today have been in the scout of raising money, and they're having such cash flow issues. I hope things improve. But sir, you have been deeply involved with a lot of change programs in the past. One of your specialty is transforming the entire treasury operations, system improvement, etc., etc. Would you like to tell our viewers a little bit about your experiences in the past of how you transformed systems and processes in companies, citing one or two examples? That would be great.
So I will start with a recent example in Tata Sky. So we are in the middle of a transformation journey, not only in treasury, but across the entire finance organization, as well across the organization itself. So we are in a digital, in a digital journey. Am I audible?
Yes, perfect. Yes, you are.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So what we have done is that we had gone into a big automation journey in the last 6 years. We started with basic automation of the processes. Then we moved into RPA in 2017. We already have some 5 or 6 bots working. Now we are in the transformation of treasury. So we have tied up with a well-known company for an end-to-end automation of the treasury operations, right from the beginning till the end. So there is nothing which is going to come out of Excel. We are exactly in the middle of the project, and by August or September, we would have delivered an end-to-end automation in treasury. So we are looking at consolidation of cash balances, looking at everything in one single dashboard with a click of a button, rather than trying to do it manually through Excel sheets and all those things. So we are in big-time automation and transformation of treasury operations. This, we believe, is the way for the future. And we are also looking at bringing some kind of AI capabilities. Even I'm exploring whether we can do blockchain in treasury. That's something which we are exploring. I have not got an answer. So we are looking for use cases across the globe. And we are tying up with some global consultants as well and see what all we can do in terms of automation. I'm a big believer in technology, and therefore we always look out for opportunities for improvement.
Sir, you mentioned about technology, blockchain, artificial intelligence. And I also understand that you strongly recommend people going through the book of Deep Learning by Gary Kasparov. It was a very humble experience by Mr. Gary when he lost against the Deep Blue, which was sponsored by IBM. Would you like to throw some light on this? That what do we learn from this book title, and in the changing world in today's time, how should people take some learnings from there?
Yeah. So Gary Kasparov, I would say, was a pioneer in terms of getting automation or getting technology into the chess field. Actually, he worked very closely with IBM. IBM. He was bold enough to agree for a match, and in the first match he won, and the second match he lost, and that too with a whisker. And he said that technology is here to stay. But one never thought that the technology is going to become so strong that if you look at today's chess world, the gap between, say, AlphaZero or any other Stockfish or any other application or any other chess program is way ahead of human beings, actually. So AlphaZero, I'll just give a small anecdote as to how AlphaZero came in. Just I think 2-3 years back in December, this was created by Dennis Hamabes. Actually, he was a chess player, and he created this company called DeepMind. And he created this program called AlphaGo. So Go is a game which is very popular in Korea. So that Go game actually defeated the world's best Go player. And Lee Sedol is the name of the guy. And there is also a Netflix movie on that. You must watch that to see how technology can trump human beings. Based on that experience, they created this artificial intelligence chess program called AlphaZero. Actually, the fundamental difference in technology, what they had used in this, is very important to know. What they have done is that they, instead of just looking at the way, see, normally chess programs are created based on the past experience. Typically, we also do that in business. We take the past experience and extrapolate for future. That is how we normally try to do the forecasting and everything. What these guys have done is a completely different thing. They said, forget about the past. They started like a zero-based budgeting. They started with zero-base. They taught the computer to play chess. And they created the basic moves, basically how the rook will move in straight line, how the bishop will move diagonally, how the queen will move like a rook plus bishop. So those kind of things, they taught the basic rules of the game. They did not put in any of the past games. So there was no prior history or knowledge with the computer. It just learned like a child is learning. It learned the moves of the game. Then with the huge computing power, they allowed the chess program to play against itself, so that artificial intelligence is what? You learn by playing yourself.
That's right.
So based on the rules, it keeps on learning. So with the supercomputing power, they played millions of, the computer itself played against itself, millions of games in a time span of 4 hours. Just 4 hours after creation, it played millions of games. And then it was pitted against the world's best computer program, which was called Stockfish. And they allowed it to play 100 games. In 100 games, 28 games were won by AlphaZero, 72 were drawn, which means that within it is like a 4-hour-old baby learning about chess and defeating the world champion in human parlance.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So the technology, the power of technology is humongous. So therefore, AI is a very important technology. And in this book of Gary Kasparov, he doesn't talk about this in detail. This I'm giving you as additional information. Please go and see in YouTube on AlphaGo, that Netflix movie you should see, and also about AlphaZero. It's a fascinating kind of a story. And people are still, and today Magnus Carlsen, the chess champion, is learning from AlphaZero as to how to play chess. His quality of, so there is a HumBot concept which is coming in now, where humans and bots can tie in together, which is again relevant for our business as well. How can humans collaborate with bots? So there is a concept called HumBots which is coming in, and which can be much better than either robots standalone basis or humans on a standalone basis. The HumBot technology is going to be the future, is what I believe.
Sure. So AlphaGo is the next watch in Netflix. That's one of the recommendation by Mr. Samba. And interestingly, I mean, we are seeing that in the stock markets globally and the bond markets globally, the way we are seeing big moves in no time. I mean, 10-15% moves in stock markets in a week time, but not something that we used to see very often. Now, it's a time of artificial intelligence and algorithm trading that we are seeing this kind of moves. And I think that's probably the future. Sir, in terms of some specific subjects, I mean, you mentioned about treasury transformations, you mentioned about cash flows, you mentioned about how tightly you have learned to manage cash and deployment of cash, especially for companies who have surplus cash. In terms of money raising or asset liability management, I see that you have spent a lot of time with Vodafone UK. What has been your experiences for companies who have got subsidiaries outside, in terms of managing their interest rate or foreign exchange hedge, or managing their translation hedges? Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that
Yeah.
line, sir?
So we do have a huge amount of hedging we have multi-million-dollar exposure in forex because our set-top boxes are imported, and therefore we have to make payment in dollars, and it's a very important part of our treasury function. Forex management is very, very important. It runs into multiple hundreds of crores for us, the exposure, and therefore hedging is something which we do it on a regular basis, and we look at various options in terms of forward contracts, options, various scenarios. We have a board defined parameter within which we have to operate. So we are a slightly conservative company. We operate hedging not as a profit center, but as a cost center. So we don't look at making money out of hedging, but we want to make sure that we don't lose any money, and we are to that extent very, very conservative. So that is one philosophy in Tata Sky. So that is the right philosophy. So which means that this volatility in this forex rate doesn't impact our losses in a very big way. So because you have almost hedged, maybe 85-90% of your amount is almost hedged. So the open exposure is also not of an immediate nature, not of immediate payment due. So that is something which we very carefully monitor. Again, coming back to the subject, this requires very close monitoring, daily monitoring. And you'll have to take calls as to when do you open LCs, what's the rate at which you have to open the LCs, which bankers to go. We always go for multiple bankers and say, okay, get the best possible rate. So a lot of things happen. So we got a very strong treasury team, which does this, a small but strong treasury team. And the good news was that when Ernst & Young came and did the survey, a study of our benchmarking of the cost, they said that we were by and large there in terms of the cost efficiency. So that was a good, what you can say, stamp of approval, which we thought was good for us.
That's a very important point. I mean, all our viewers who are listening to us today, I think the point I want to mention from Samar's thoughts is, of course, the concept of benchmarking, understanding your risk appetite. What he rightly mentioned, they're very conservative. I mean, treasury most of the times has to be considered as a cost center, and if you want to make it a profit center, of course, it's a different business and ball game altogether. Interestingly, as I also know that use of options has been very fruitful for you, sir, in the past, and I think in case you are an importer, I think use of options have been very, very useful for most of the companies who have large exposures, and I think Tata Sky is one of them who is using very smart and conservative options to hedge their foreign exchange risk. So I completely agree with you, sir. Team is very efficient and they do a great job. So, sir, in terms of capital structure or banking improvisations or asset liability mismatch, any thoughts or any particular experience that you had in the past which you would like to take it across to our viewers?
So in terms of capital exposure, specifically what you are getting at, whether it is which way to fund
could be debt equity,
yeah,
or
so
which
we have
way
a debt equity norm. So
Yeah.
so at least in Tata Sky. So in my previous organization, the last I handled treasury was in Procter & Gamble as a separate function. After that, I was not directly handling treasury. I was kind of managing through somebody because I was senior at that time. So therefore, the individual treasury operations was handled by somebody else. So day-to-day operations, I was not involved in. But actually, you need to have a debt equity structure. For example, today, getting debt is not very, very easy. I find companies are struggling, particularly these MSMEs are struggling, even though there is a TARP-like scenario saying that the government is giving 1 lakh crores of rupees. But the companies are not getting those funds because the banks are once bitten now because of the NPA issues and the financial crisis which is now happening. So not too many bankers are there to fund these kind of risky operations, so-called risky operations. So that is a problem. So for example, fortunately for companies like Tata Sky, raising debt has not been a problem because we have a reasonably strong balance sheet and therefore it is not an issue. But I can really understand that particularly in this situation, when working capital cycle is getting impacted, you need more for liquidity. It is not long-term which banks now companies are looking for. They want short-term liquidity funding. Fortunately, because we are in a prepaid business, we have a huge negative working capital. So we have customers' money sitting with us for a few days. Money is sitting with us, and also we get credit from their suppliers. So both from the sales side and the purchase side, we have got liabilities, not assets. So our receivables are a fairly very small number compared to the payables. So that is the what you can say beauty of the industry, so to say, the industry in which we are working, because it's a prepaid market. Having said that, it is important to make sure that you collect the money. Particularly in my previous organization, when there was the need to collect money in advance or give less credit, collection becomes a very important factor. I had spent 15 years in telecom sector, and in postpaid business, particularly in Mumbai circle, we used to have a big, what you can say, challenge in terms of collecting money from the customers. How do we reduce the bad debts? How do we make sure that the customer's risk profile is managed? You don't expose yourself beyond a certain amount. There's a whole lot of credit and collections parameter which you need to do, which I think now many companies have to get into, because you need to limit your exposure in terms of receivables. So that's another challenge, which is a big challenge, which fortunately we are not facing as we speak today.
Right, great. So over the last 30 years, one challenge which you faced over the course of your career, and how did you convert that challenge into an opportunity? Our viewers would love to hear from you, sir.
Yeah, so there was a big challenge when I was working with this company called BPL Mobile. As I said, I spent a lot of time in telecom industry. I joined BPL Mobile in 1998, and subsequently it was taken over by Hutch, which in turn was bought over by Vodafone. This all happened subsequently. I'm talking about while it was a part of BPL Mobile, while I was working as part of BPL Mobile, which was way back some 17, 18 years back is what I'm talking about now. So the company was going through a lot of financial crisis in terms of the business not doing well, in terms of the debt not coming through. We had a lot of short-term debts, so we had to convert them into long-term debts. If it is a short-term debt, you have to pay every year, repay the money, for which you'll have to again fund it, because the business itself was not turning around. So we had a huge problem of financial crisis. At that time, we had some of the vendors also trying to file against Chapter 11 and all those things. So it was a real financial crisis, and I was at the managing the brunt of things as the head of corporate finance, dealing with the bankers, dealing with everybody. So I still remember those days when the CEOs of the different three circles used to call me and say that, will we be able to pay the salary for the next month? So it was a real cash crunch situation. We managed for about a year or so, during which time we tied up with the bank consortium to get the short-term loan converted into long-term loan. It was a more than nearly 1,700 crores plus kind of an amount we are talking about, and it's a big deal. At those days I'm talking about, it was a very big deal 18 years back, getting that funding done. So that is something which is a satisfying experience. But prior to that, about a year, we had to work for 18 hours a day. The entire team had to work long days and long nights, no Saturdays, no Sundays. So that 1 year, even though it was the most challenging period of my life, I thought I can remember back with fondness.
That's a great message for all the millennials today, who are listening to you today, about how to convert the challenges which just look so difficult to overcome, and how do we convert that into opportunities. So, sir, one message for all these budding treasurers who are listening to us today, who have spent 4, 5, 6 years in companies and looking to achieve to a level where people like you have reached with hard work and perseverance. What are the 2 or 3 message that you would like to give them, and what are the 2 or 3 skills that you want them to work on, which I'm sure you must be also looking at your peers in your company?
Yeah. So 2-3 messages as possibly as a CFO. One is we should embrace technology. That's very critical, and try to use technology to our advantage. Technology is not a bane; it's a big boon for us. So that is something which is a very strong message I keep telling my people as well. Because particularly people think that if I adopt more technology, then what happens to the people? They will lose their jobs. Then how do I handle the job losses? So typically the teams themselves are not so much in favor of technology, because they think it could be jobs at risk. So I don't think that is the case. Technology can actually give you more free time. It gives you more thinking time. It gives you more analysis time, so that you can spend your time effectively. Instead of doing the report, you can analyze and you can actually be a better business partner. So that is the second piece. So for you to become a better business partner, you need to embrace technology so that you have enough time to work on business partnership. Otherwise, you will be doing only the core finance job. So if you have to come out of it, you need to become a business partner. You need to have time to understand the business, how sales is happening, how customer service is happening, how marketing is happening. So all these things you need to understand. So today I would suggest that you need to become broader in terms of knowledge. So for that, you need to have what you can say an inquisitive mind or a learning culture. So you need to have that urge to learn on a daily basis. So which I keep doing. So that is something which I would insist that in today's world, that is very, very critical, because if you don't learn, you are not ready for the future. For example, in my days, I was an 1987 chartered accountant, which is 33 years back. With one qualification, it's enough for you to take through your entire career with one qualification. There are many CAs who have had a very successful career with just one qualification for about 30, 40 years. Nowadays, one qualification is not at all enough, and one skill set is not at all enough. You may sail through for maybe 5 years, 6 years. After that, you'll have to rebuild yourself by learning new skills. So that has become the norm. So therefore, you need to learn. The need for learning and the ease of learning has become so much there that you can learn on your own, anything you can learn. So therefore, I would urge people to learn and embrace technology and become a better business partner. These are the three things I would say.
Super. So as per Mr. Samba, take a holistic approach towards the business. I mean, if you're working in a finance function, it doesn't only mean a finance. You have to be a business person to grow, embrace technology, and continuously learn. And you don't need people to come and teach you. I think the entire online world is for you. That's a great message, sir. I think I completely agree with you. Coming to your personal life, how is Mr. Ganeshan as a person? I understand you have developed deep interest in marathons and chess, and of course piano. How do you structure your day? How do you get your team motivated? As I understand that you always feel that your team is your greatest asset, and you need to motivate them on a regular basis and get the best out of them, making sure that their own priorities are being met, and their vision and your vision has to be matched together.
Yeah.
So I would like you to throw some lights on, a day management, managing your personal and professional lives, and also about these young people who are confused and who are seeking mentorship from people like you.
Yeah. So to start with, I am actually blessed with a very, very strong, fundamentally strong team. So the first advice I would say for any CFO or a budding CFO is that you need to build a strong team which is stronger than yourself. So that is the fundamental thing. And I must thank them for allowing me to pursue all these interests, because if they had not been doing their jobs as efficiently as they are doing, I would not have had time to do other pursuits as well. For example, all these, whatever I'm talking about, marathon, I started only 4 years back. And I have done the ultra marathon. Also, I've learned piano only for the last 3-4 years. I am a passionate reader. I read a lot of books. And in fact, in 1 year, in 2015, I have read 1 book a day, meaning 365 books a year. Awesome. So that is something which I am proud of. So reading has actually helped me to become a better person. So I'm also trying to inculcate all these habits with my team, and my team is quite challenging themselves as well. So the first thing is that I must thank my team for allowing me to pursue all these things. And by that, they are also becoming efficient. So they have now completely embraced this technology route. So we have got a roadmap for the next 2 years, what we have to do. There are many projects, everything. So I'm there or not there, things keep happening. So you need to build a team which makes you redundant. So that's one. And as a person, I'm a very kind of simple, family-oriented person. I have 3 daughters, and I spend a lot of time with my family. I love being with my family. Simple needs. Basically, I want to learn. That's my objective. Reading is my primary objective, and even working in office is my secondary objective, so to say.
That's awesome. I remember the old timers used to say that once a woodcutter goes to a forest, he needs to sharpen his axe for 8 hours and cut the tree for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And most of the people do the reverse. And I think that's exactly what you're doing. I think you are sharpening your racks for maximum amount of time so that the 2 hours is the most productive. So that's an awesome takeaway from Mr. Sambasivan Ganeshan. And sir, I thank you so much for being part of Treasury Elite Leadership Series. I'm sure hundreds and thousands of people would be benefited with your experience and whatever thoughts that you have bring on board today. I thank you once again, and thank you so much for taking out time, and wish you all the very best under these uncertain circumstances. I'm sure under your leadership, Tata Sky is in safe hands, and I wish your team, your family, and all your colleagues all the very best in days to come, sir. Thank you so much.